This is part 2 of chapter 14, looking at fallacies in reasoning. The first one in part 2 is the line drawing fallacy. And just because it's difficult to draw a line between two things to separate them, then this fallacy states that one should not even try or attempt to draw the line. So you might say the speed limit is 65 miles. Then it might be okay to go 66 because 66 is just 1 mile more than 65. And if it's okay to go 66, well, what about 67? Because it's only 1 mile more than 66. And how about 68? How about 69? As you can tell, it's all just 1 mile more. And so this argument says really it's difficult to draw the line because we shouldn't even attempt to draw the line because it's difficult to draw the line. It's rather arbitrary where you draw the line. Well, you have to draw the line sometimes. The slippery slope argument is the next one. This fallacy suggests that one desirable action will inevitably lead to a worse action. It's kind of the domino effect. If you date that boy, says the mom or the dad to the daughter, then you'll drop out of school, you'll become pregnant, you'll never go to college, you'll never get a good job, and it seems like it's all downhill. So it's kind of a slippery slope with there's nothing to stop you. Now, we do know that sometimes when you make a key decision that it does have a kind of a domino effect, but not all decisions have a domino effect. You can also stop the consequences. It doesn't have to lead from one to the other directly. It might, but it's not necessarily the case. The two wrongs make a right argument is where somebody defends their wrong by saying that other people are doing the same wrong or something even worse. So why stop me, officer? Everybody else is speeding, so you shouldn't stop me at all. The perfect solution fallacy is the idea that since you can never have a perfect solution. If you can't ever have a perfect solution, that means that the present solution should be rejected because the problem would still exist after you implement it. So it's a search for a perfect solution. So any solution that you present, someone will always have an issue with it, saying, well, it doesn't satisfy this or it doesn't satisfy that. And so at the end of the day, you must say, well, logistically, what's the best? If it satisfies 90% of the people, 90% of the time, then maybe it's good. So we don't have to go search for a perfect solution. The historian's fallacy occurs when it is assumed that the decision makers in the past could see things from the same perspective and with the same information that we have today in looking at a past event. So if we're looking at the 9/11 event, all right, we could say if the Federal Aviation Administration had a policy on banning box cutters on airplanes, the 9/11 tragedy would never have happened. You know, we can look back with greater information, and hindsight is 20/20 vision. You can't evaluate people in a different era by the same standards that you are using today. You have to evaluate them based on the information that they had at that time. That's the historian's fallacy. The gambler's fallacy involves assumes that the laws are probably must balance out in the short run. For example, it's a mistaken belief that if you flip a coin 3 times in a row and 3 times in a row they turn up head, that more than likely the next flip will turn out to be tails. Well, we know that every time you flip a coin, there's a 50-50 chance, right, of heads and tails. And if you get ahead and you flip a coin a second time, it's still 50-50. A third time, it's still 50-50. But in the long run, if you flip 50 coins, more than likely you might have somewhat of a balance of 25-25 or 20-30. But it doesn't mean that it must completely balance out. It won't necessarily be 25-25. The red herring Involves bringing in an irrelevant point to distract somebody from the argument that they're trying to make. It is something that just changes the topic under discussion, and it doesn't have any relevancy whatsoever. Those are the fallacies from chapter 14. And again, a reminder that fallacies involve a poor thinking or a poor thought process. And it's good for you as a speaker to be able to say, when you argue and when you reason, that your thought process are logical, and that you bring your assumptions under a microscope to scrutinize them to make sure that your assumptions are not misleading you or misleading the audience. It allows you as an audience member to be able to listen to somebody else's speech and to pick out where there is some poor thought processes going on and misleading conclusions based on faulty assumptions.